Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Right, shall we get into today?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Leigh, welcome back to the podcast, buddy.
How you doing? Thanks for having me back.
Mate, it's great to see you. It's always great to see you. You were down in Londonshire the other day, seeing our good friend James Gearing. How were the boys and girls?
That was an incredible experience. James let me know that they would be in Hyde Park at Speaker's Corner at noon. And I'd followed the Instagram story for the 7X project. It just wowed me from the start, knowing what they were up to and what they represented. And just landed in Hyde Park and seeing them. They were midway through their marathon around Hyde Park. A couple had gone to Birmingham to do their base jumping. I was in awe of the whole thing. What incredible human beings, keeping it real and very selfless as well, because none of them looked like they were enjoying any moment of that marathon. Because they'd done like 4 days running, in different continents. Where they left in Florida, they went South Africa, Antarctica, Australia, Middle East, Cairo, then out to Dubai, and then London, Colombia, and then back to Texas. 7 days, 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 base jumps or skydives. Just wow. And none of it for themselves, all to raise awareness for mental health and well-being, suicide prevention for military and first responders.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. It's a big move, isn't it? Just the fucking logistics of something like that. You're just like, oh my God.
It's colossal.
It is, mate. And that's what we were sort of talking about, things like that before we came on today. And it's just... the level of organization that goes on behind some of this stuff, it really, I don't think many people can comprehend. And it's often the people not necessarily on the front line doing it. It's people like James, and James is only one cog in that large machine, but he wasn't doing the marathons, he wasn't doing the jumps.
No,
he was there supporting, helping, logistics, traveling, all of that sort of stuff. Social media, 100%. It's a big team. It's a wonderful thing to be part of.
Really cool. And just having high-fiving, hugging, it was just amazing. I left there feeling so enriched for being with so many cool people. It's inspirational because you come away and you think, right, I'm already doing great things myself for the better and the good. What else can I do? Because these have shown me that there's more to do.
Yeah.
And you feel like, and it's just, and that's it. That's infectious.
It is, mate. I always think of that when people say, how much money would you need to win in the lottery to be happy or content or whatever? And some people go like, oh, I think £2 million. And it depends how big of an impact you're going to try and have on the world. Because most people unknowingly shrink their world down, and we all do it. And it's like, I think I would need this to do this. But then you think, well, what about the thing that you're interested in with that charity, or with those horses, or with mental health, or with your wider family, or your cousins, or the kids that you see down the street, or those inner city challenges? And when you start widening that, you think, well, I'll tell you what, I probably need 2 billion just to get started. And no, 99% of that is not for you. It's because of all the other stuff you want to try and do, or the impact you want to make. And it's not to say that it's all about money, but it's like when we say about trying to make a difference, and the podcast hopefully is a similar hilarity to it. It's like doesn't pay any fucking money. It's just it's how are you making people feel?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I always say to people will forget what you do, they'll forget what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
You know, what mark did you leave?
Yeah.
And that's not, doesn't mean what we're doing is better or worse. Doesn't mean the emergency services is better than someone that works in Tesco's, but it's just like, what mark do you want to leave? Because that's all you're going to really leave here. You know, everything else you earn will just get frittered away afterwards. It's like, what impact did you have? What did somebody think of Leigh? What was he trying to do with his life? What impact was he trying to make? And I think that's a very, very special and rare thing. But ultimately, I think when I do things like that, similar to what you did the other day, you get a strange, overwhelming sense of fulfillment for it. More so than when you get a pay rise or when you get a whatever. That shit disappears emotionally almost a second after you've got it. It's a bit like there's an old analogy where I think Tony Robbins uses it, where he says, you know, that he was on a plane the first ever time there was Wi-Fi. And they said, everybody, you know, Wi-Fi has just been approved. It's live now. Here's the login. Try and have a go, blah, blah, blah. And everyone was on it. And they were like, oh, fucking high five, high five, high five. And they were doing their emails, and like 20 minutes later, it failed. They're like, oh, sorry, guys. It's just people were in fucking uproar. You know what I mean? Something you was a dream, was an absolute technological masterpiece. And all of a sudden, it's an expectation. Do you know what I mean? And I see this sometimes when people get a promotion or people get a raise or people do a thing, and then they're like immediately unfulfilled by it. And I've had this with vehicles, with businesses, and that's when I've hopefully had the self-awareness to go, you know what? I've done this now. I'm going to walk away because I've enjoyed it, but I'm not going to hang around after the party's over. There's lots of other things I want to do.
For sure. And that's the thing when you get involved with meaningful subjects.
Yeah.
You end up valuing the feeling over any financial gain.
Yeah.
You know, much can be similar can be said for the fire service. Nobody joins the fire brigade to be rich, but you are enriched immensely by what you do.
I always say they don't join it for the income, they join it for the outcome.
Yeah.
Because of what you're doing, what you're part of, the stuff you get to do on a daily basis.
That's right. And there's nothing can replace that. The feeling that you get for making a difference to somebody's life is worth more than anything in the world. Like you say, the feeling that you leave that person with or those people with, it's so beneficial in so many ways. It's beneficial to you because you've done something amazing. But the people that have received that gratitude, that service, suddenly think, and you don't know what their story is, where they are in their lives. And just by experiencing something so selfless and something so incredible that isn't really much to the first responder, it's just their job.
Yeah.
But to the person that's received that service, it's like, oh my God.
You become part of their story.
Yeah.
It's like, how grateful are you to the postman? You should be pretty fucking grateful because he's also, or she is also just doing their job.
Yeah.
But when you just do your job as part of a first responder, you become part of a story they're going to tell for the rest of their fucking life.
And that they might be on the precipice, is that right word? On the precipice of not knowing where they want to go in their life. Yeah.
Or not knowing if they want to be here anymore.
Yeah. And just by showing up and showing them how incredible human beings are, they go, fuck, I want to do that, or I want to do something like that. And then on goes and another incredible story, another journey starts of someone amazing. Yeah, we all have an important part to play in making a difference to society. And I've said that in recent weeks, talking about the value of firefighting, because that's where I come from, but the success story of a firefighter and how that can be adopted in the community. You take all of those things that firefighters are successful at and place them into a community group, a club, wherever you want to lay that blueprint. Everybody can benefit from that. And I just, that's why I'm so engaged and want to get involved in so many things, because, I know that from my experience, not just me blowing a trumpet, that's not what I'm doing, Mike. With the experience that I've got from what I do and the people that I've been surrounded by, I want to push that on. I want to share that.
Is there, though, a challenge? Because, we're speaking about how much we love the job and all that sort of jazz there. when it's something that you really enjoy and people say, we don't join it for the income, have we, and it's kind of a biased question, have we ended up positioning ourselves in a place where it's like, well, you know what, we could get 1,000 people to do your job then, which is kind of where we end up with not getting, remunerated correctly in terms of firefighter pay. Now, there's a big thing that's going on in the UK right now, and I know it's something you've got a colossal more amount of knowledge than myself on. So when we're looking at the new pay offer that firefighters are being offered and what's being put forward, there's been a lot of back and forth over the past few months. And I also want to compare this to a little bit of something that's going on in the NHS and stuff like that. So with the meeting with the National Joint Council, Wednesday, the 8th of February, fire service employers came back with a new offer of 7% on the NJC-negotiated pay rates and CPD backdated to July 2022, and a further 5% from July for all grey book staff. So we have got a period of time now in and around balloting, and it's from now until
March 6th.
Yeah, March the 6th to come to a decision on it. Why have we struggled for so long with firefighter pay? Because I think the initial offer this year was 1.4. Oh no, last year was 1.5%, wasn't it?
Yep.
Which is horrific. When we look at the challenges in rising costs of living and stuff like that, I mean, the cost of inflation and living cost of inflation increases during 2021, 2022, and this is from the Parliament's website. The annual rate of inflation reached 11.1%. October 2022, that's a 41-year high. And within that, the vast majority of it comes up with energy and services. I mean, I got a letter yesterday from EE saying my phone bill is going up 15% for exactly the same thing. Give us a little bit of a background on your sort of observations on the way this pay negotiation has been managed in this last big push.
I think you go back in history to, my father was part of this 1977 strike, and nothing's really changed in terms of government funding for public services. I think for the government coffers, it's probably their biggest outlay. And year on year on year on year, and various governments being in power, public services have always been expensive. I think
but we're not the most expensive.
No.
I can back you up with some number there. So the cost of the UK Fire and Rescue Service, so the net current expenditure on UK Fire and Rescue Services is 3 billion. So England, it's 2.4 and blah, 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 blah. But central government expenditure as set out in the Treasury is 500 billion. So we are still a very small percentage of that. And the cost of fire and rescue services per person per year is only 50 quid to a member of the public over the whole year. So I think we're pretty cheap.
Yeah,
for the public.
We are. But I think if you look at that total as a total sum, it's all pro rata. And I think savings have to be made across, 10% in another industry that costs 50 million is a lot less than 10% in an industry that costs 3. And I think pro rata, they cuts and costs have to be, I say have to, I take with a pinch of salt. I say that has to. Corporate tax breaks and tax arrangements for big corporations that are in the pockets of some political parties.
Mate, did you see the rich list, Sunday Times rich list?
No.
Rishi Sunak is worth 730 million.
Wow.
730 million. And I get it, and it's very well done. It's wonderful, him and his partner. I know a lot of some from his partner is generational wealth because her dad is some colossal billionaire in India or something like that.
Yeah.
So great, and you want somebody at the top that's good at business, stuff like that. But when you hear someone trying to talk to you about cost of living and they're fucking worth 730 million, it's a little bit hard to connect on authenticity, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when you hear him say, the next couple of years are going to be difficult for us all." I'm sure it is.
And also, we say the cost of firefighters and stuff like that. We've actually still lost a lot of firefighters, so we're down 20% since 2010. We've lost nearly 12,000 UK firefighting jobs.
The more you cut, and this is the thing, and I think it's and it's only my opinion. The more you cut, and the more you cut back, and the boys and girls at the sharp end are still doing a great job.
Yeah.
Under more difficult circumstances and managing incidents very differently because there's less people and but they're still getting the job done. Do you not think it's like from the eyes above in central offices they consider that they're still managing to get the job done? Could we strip them back a little bit more to a point where it gets to a point where you think, okay, I think we've took the piss for long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite clearly not working, and we might need to invest when that's what the representative bodies have been saying for the last 12 years, especially in the last 12 years since the Tory administration and austerity post 2008 financial crash,
Mm.
that we find ourselves just existing. Many of us just existing because the cost of everything has gone up, but
Yeah.
our wages haven't. And we end up in a position where we are having, by no fault of our own, find ourselves in a position having to ballot for industrial action,
Yeah.
and that's not
The
out
only
of
card we've
greed.
got to play, mate, isn't it?
That's
That's the
yeah.
thing.
That's not out of greed.
No, they released some great numbers
Mm,
around number of incidents that we attend, number of lives that we save in the UK, and I'm sure you're already more than familiar
mm,
with the FBU's content and stuff like that.
mm,
But even though incidents have dropped dramatically over the past few years, firefighters still rescue over 40,000 people across the UK every single year. So, we're still very, very busy boys and girls.
mm.
And this aspect of industrial action can really paint firefighters into a really bad light, especially when layered upon some of the aspects that we're going through now with cultural reviews. And I saw something on a BBC Sounds podcast the other day. Have you heard that one?
Yes,
That's fucking rough, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah, it was not, didn't make for a good listen.
No, it's not. And I think many of those things that are coming out now are quite. And I've had a few, significant debates on social media around the a subject of a toxic culture, and firefighters being racist, homophobic, misogynists. And
Are we? Do I just live in a bias? Like,
okay,
people know what I do, so sometimes, when they say the Queen only smells fresh paint everywhere she goes,
mm,
do people just not say stuff around you or around me? Because I personally don't experience it anymore, and I
no,
travel
no,
and
no,
visit lots of services
no,
all the time. I'm not saying it doesn't
sure,
exist.
no,
I'm
and
not
I've
saying it
said
didn't
that.
exist, but I think we're stuff from like 10 years ago, what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. There was a comment, a significant comment, and it was there is nowhere in the UK Fire and Rescue Service for a person of color or female that is safe. And I thought, wow. And that individual was quite significant in the subject nationally. And I just thought, I, I don't like
What an
that.
irresponsible
Yeah,
statement to
I
make.
don't like that because and for this one reason, words are dangerous.
Yeah.
Words can be dangerous. And for me, if somebody sees that, reads that, and then sees myself on a fire engine with all my colleagues, that of none of them are any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
They're respectful, decent human beings that do a professional job.
Yeah.
And someone on the street says, "Oh, look at that fucking bunch of racist,
Racist.
sexist, homophobic,
Yeah.
misogynists,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, no. Don't listen. Don't believe all you read. There are some fucking horror stories out there,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not on this fire engine, or at my fire station, or within my service
Absolutely.
that I know of.
Absolutely.
And I'm quite, I listen. I'm engaged. We've gone through our own cultural review in years past, and we've got our own dark past in certain stories,
Mm.
but we've addressed them, and we're moving forwards in a very, very healthy way. But
It's just irresponsible, I
yeah,
think, the way some people use these words. Some of them don't have a context from the origin of that word and what it truly means.
mm,
And sometimes it's just virtue signaling for people that
yeah,
don't want you to wave their flag for them anyway.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
It almost puts a harsh light on some of the wonderful female firefighters and
mm,
people from diverse backgrounds who
mm,
have been operating in these services for
mm,
20, 30 years, happily running
yeah,
successful, engaged
yeah,
careers.
yeah,
And now someone's coming up to them going, "Hey, you step out away from all those people over there. Come over here.
yeah,
Tell me how they've been treating you." And they're a bit like,
yeah,
"Tell you what we're going to do is we're going to get all of you and we're going to
mm,
put all of you on one fire engine together to
mm,
show solidarity." And they're like, "I don't want to be part of that. I'm what are you doing? I'm a
yeah,
normal member of the crew."
yeah,
I've had it with female firefighters where they're like, people try and round them up and put them all on a pump together for some sort of publicity stunt. And they're like, I don't want to be part of that. I'm a firefighter. I'm not experiencing any of these things that you're saying. I don't want to be part of this conversation. Please stop. You are isolating me. You are singling me out. My crew isn't. My colleagues aren't. You're making this a thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there'll be plenty of white male firefighters who have been bullied in the past. Bullying is bullying.
Yeah.
Putrid, and I hate it. And I will burn somebody if I see that. I don't care who they're doing it to. I don't care if they're doing it to a member of control staff, to a member of the cleaning staff, to a member of my watch. I won't be around it. People do it to your kids, you wouldn't be around it. Those people we have those strong morals and values within our services across the world, not just across the UK Fire and Rescue Service. So when I see those aspects thrown into the harsh light that they're in at the moment, and I know we've gone straight down this rabbit hole instead, as it like we were coming around firefighter pay, but it does just, I don't know, it just stinks.
And it's damaging because people from the outside, we're looking to, staff retention isn't something that's a problem in the fire and rescue service, but attraction to the job, that will take a massive hit, as a result of this rhetoric.
That rhetoric, but also the pay. I don't want somebody going, I've always wanted to be a firefighter. I think it's a great profession, but you know what? I can't live on that. You know what I mean? I can't do that. Don't you want to be attracting people, the best of our community, the best, most aspiring, resourceful, intelligent, or simply just resourceful? They haven't got to have degrees, but the best of the best. Do you know what I mean? Don't you want people with the strong morals, the strong values coming into a profession like this and aspiring to do it? Or do you want them going, I'd love to do that. It really stands for something great, but I can't do it for that money. I can't feed my family on that wage.
No.
So unfortunately, I'm going to have to go and work at Asda because it pays better. Really?
I know. It's very frustrating. And back to onto the subject of pay. It's we've fell behind for many years. Whether it's pay freezes, pay caps, and we get ourselves to a position like we've said about having no choice but to take industrial action, which no one wants to do.
No.
For me, I don't want to put the people I'm proud of serving at risk. And B, I need more income to support my family through a cost of greed crisis. I hear too many often the cost of living crisis. It's not a cost of living crisis. It's a cost of greed crisis. In a report I read yesterday, a news article, that energy companies are recording like treble profits. My energy bill's gone up 3 times. I'm fucking not surprised they're recording so many incredible profits. And our heads, our government heads, that arrange these corporations to be operating and making a profit within our country, are allowed to do that. It screams to me that they are corporate sponsors of those parties, to be allowed to be able to do that and put so much pressure on the standards of living of the citizens of the same countries that they're operating in. And the government does nothing about it. It's staggering. So to be offered a 7% backdated and a 5% projected forward is something. For me, it's a reject. Controversial to some. It doesn't go far enough.
Okay.
On the principle of inflation, October 2022 was 11.1%. It still sits around 10. 7 isn't enough, even if it is backdated. My savings have disappeared. There weren't much of them, but they've disappeared because I've had to cover the shortfall in the cost of everything and not earning enough. And projected a 5% from June 2023 onwards to 24. I'm not fucking signing up for that. It's the government are predicting that inflation is going to come down. It's anticipated that inflation is going to come down. That's a fucking massive gamble, and I'm not buying into it. I don't buy into it. I can't buy into it. Not when there is so much wealth around and there is such a misdistribution of wealth, and so many and so many businesses with tax breaks,
Mm.
and so many people that, like Rishi Sunak, who have got so much money,
Mm.
trying to tell us that we're all in it, we're all in it together, and it's going to be a difficult couple of years,
Mm.
and finding money left, right, and centre for, I don't know, whatever it is, foreign aid.
Yeah. No.
It's expense. There's no
Mm.
return.
No. The
And
NHS is like even a bigger problem, and they're getting a lesser offer, aren't they?
I
Because
know,
the paramedics were on strike last couple of days, weren't they?
yeah, governments, certainly the conservative governments, and any government really, but specifically them, they don't negotiate with trade unions. Seldom do they want to negotiate with trade unions. Some specific trade unions more than others.
Why
They've got,
is that? Do you know?
uh,
I know you've got loads of friends in different places. I'm not going to
yeah,
name any names or anything like that. But
no,
how healthy are these discussions to your limited knowledge?
I think there's a lot of head banging on walls goes on from union officials. I think there is a very flippant raised hands,
Mm.
a raised hand to the face saying, there is no more money. There is no more money, or there is no money. And I think those that are in the know, and those that work out, that those that are in trade union, senior trade union, and regional and local, that have got lots of knowledge of how public money is managed and how budgets are formed, and
Mm.
there's some intelligent people that I think the government overlook,
Mm.
that come in and say, you've got your sums wrong, or you're just hoodwinking us.
Yeah.
Because have a look at this. We've done the math. You got people, like you say, with they have no idea about the subject matter, no experience. They were
Mm.
never in that sector before they become a politician. And then they're like, right, this is what we're going to do. And everyone around them says, okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, 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 okay, yeah, whatever you say. And then the people at the sharp end go, what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Like, create a working group, create a steering group,
Mm.
bring in experts from that field, and respect what they have to say. Listen to them say what will work and what won't work, because at the end of the day, they're at the sharp end. They know what works and what doesn't, and try and build and try and make a difference from this end backwards rather than that end forwards.
Yeah. Start
It's,
with
it's
why. Do you know what I mean?
it,
Come from a place of I seek to understand,
yeah,
rather than I've got a
yeah,
limited amount of knowledge and now I'm going to dictate to you. What
yeah.
do you think is a realistic request? What do you think we should be getting?
You know what? If then, and I'm certain that our trade union officials within the FBU have done as much as they can. That they have worked tirelessly and negotiated the best deal that can be got in the room at that time. That's okay. But it's going forwards for me beyond 2023, 24 and beyond, where there is, no one knows where we're going to be politically.
But there's no strings attached to this, though, right?
No, that there isn't. But it's, and again, we find ourselves in a very unique position because our pay is negotiated outside of central funding. It's the employers of, that's where the negotiations have been had, and the money for the pay uplift. I'm not going to call it a pay rise. I don't like that term. It's not. I haven't gone to my bosses and
Yeah,
gone,
you're right. That's a good
it's
point,
not a
actually.
fucking pay
It's an
lift.
important difference,
It's not a
isn't it?
pay rise.
Yeah, yeah,
Please stop
yeah.
calling it a pay rise. It's an
Because every year we don't
uplift.
talk about the pay cut that we're getting, do we?
No, no, no.
Yet
It's an
now we're like,
uplift in
you're
pay.
welcome.
Yeah, yeah. It's an uplift, and it doesn't even level up.
It's almost a pay apology.
Yeah, and that's been funded by Fire and Rescue Services.
Yeah.
So they have said we will cover the increase, because the government have, like they're doing with everyone else, still got that hand up saying there's no money. Stop asking. There's
But
no
what's
money.
that going to look like from a chief fire officer's perspective? Because they're going to have to find that money from somewhere else.
Yeah,
They've already cut the backroom staff
yeah,
down to skeleton crew
yeah,
as it is.
yeah,
Is it coming off equipment? Is it coming off the frontline
yeah,
positions?
yeah.
Because, like I
So,
said, the amount of firefighters on the front line has dropped by 20% since 2010.
yeah,
That's only going to continue because we all the services still have to pay for all the stuff we've been talking about. Gas prices are up 129%,
sure.
electric's up 70%.
as another thing for you, I was thinking about it when you said about tax breaks and stuff. There's no VAT. I'm certain this is correct. There's no VAT applied to red diesel, agricultural diesel.
Yeah.
Why are fire engines and any public service vehicles not running on a because the fire brigade budget still have to pay for VAT on their fuel?
Do they?
Yeah, and I just think to myself, what I don't get that. Why are we not able to run on agricultural diesel?
That's
I
a
don't
very
know.
good point.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I digress.
No, no,
Um,
no.
but it's but I think for many years, a lot of fire and rescue services have brought in decent and very experienced financial directors and
Hmm.
account managers and budget managers, and put themselves in fairly healthy positions,
Yeah.
with some having great reserves. So when it comes to the national employers saying that we can we the fire and rescue services
Hmm.
can cover the uplift, it's only it's testament to those financial directors that have
Mm.
managed to have decent reserves that can cover that beyond 23-24, when all those reserves have gone,
Yeah.
and we're still looking for an in line with inflation pay rise or more. I feel we're going to be in exactly the same place.
Mm.
So to answer your question, like what would be acceptable, some kind of arrangement, a signed arrangement that keeps our pay in line with inflation, connect to RPI, CPI,
Yeah.
triple lock, whatever you want to call it, but at some agreement that we won't find ourselves getting worse and worse off in our living standards every year because of falling behind. So for
I
me,
think that's a great point. That
I,
connection to CPI or something like that would be would ensure or go a long way to ensuring that cost of living stays aligned and calibrates itself correctly.
yeah, yeah.
Because otherwise you just keep going back begging for more, don't you?
You do. And the sums, there's not many people that have been banding around the sums, but a very close friend of mine who's financially savvy produced a set of figures that were linked with I'm sure it's RPI
Mhm.
and the Office of National Statistics for RPI inflationary rates between 2009, 10 up to 2021 were his figures.
RPI, for people that don't know, it's
Yeah,
retail price index.
yeah, sorry. And the going to the Fire Brigade Union website and looking at firefighter pay increments year on year for the same period. And they say that we are approximately £4,000 worse off than we were in 2000. That's
Mm.
a single figure. That is an accumulative figure as well. That's
Yeah.
each year. So firefighters have lost a total of around £40,000 in 11 years or 12
Yep.
years.
So
That's a
they published
fucking
that
lot of money.
information in the FBU's documentation as well
Yeah.
on firefighter pay briefing. People can see that the real terms
Mm.
cuts in
Mm.
firefighters' pay since 2010 has been 12%, which you're right equates to £4,000
Uh-huh.
every single year,
Yeah.
which is just
Yeah.
colossal.
Yeah. And if I lost, if I not ever
If I
would,
made a bad investment of 4 grand a year,
I'd be pissed off.
you'd have to ask some
I'd be
very serious
gutted. I'd be
questions about your
depressed.
life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And to know that that's
It's that death of a thousand cuts, isn't it? You don't
yeah.
realize it until it's too late.
Yeah. And there's loads of things linked, to the industrial dispute. And you know, I you know, I don't know where it'll go, whether it's rejected or accepted. That's for the members to decide, and that's their democratic right, as it is mine to reject. I've been criticized for it's like, why would you? I'm like, because that's my democratic right.
Mm.
For me, it doesn't go far enough.
Mhm.
And for that, I'm out. If you want to vote accept, that's okay as well.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's a personal choice. So that's where I am on it. And obviously with the knee jerk reaction of the industrial, overwhelmingly winning an industrial ballot
Yeah.
for strike action, and then the government bringing in the minimum service levels. I think was snide, not just for the fire and rescue service, not for the fire brigades union, but for all of the other trade unions as well that have that's how things. History will show you that an organization doesn't want to pay you anymore. The workers aren't happy. The workers get together. The workers say, "I'm not doing it anymore." The company says, "Oh," the organization says, "Oh, okay, let's talk. What is it you want?" "Well, we want this, we want that. We can't give you that." You meet in the middle. Everyone goes back to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how it happens.
Yeah.
It has done forever. But to now take away your right to strike, like what the fuck?
Well, I think that's the golden end solution that the government would hope for with all measures, because police can't strike, can they?
No, no.
Neither can obviously the military.
No.
So that's always in the NHS. So those last two ones, and the NHS have obviously been very reluctant to do it for many, many decades now. But it's just gotten to that point where there's so many empty positions in the NHS as well. And when you were saying there around,
I read that yesterday, 9,000 nurses. It's
a wicked problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And you think, wow, for a job I love and I've been part of for so long, it's heartbreaking to feel like it's gonna go down a route where people, for many years, people have been, oh wow, you do such an incredible job, and then to feel like it might get to a point where people are like, yeah, you used to be great, but there's a lot of stigma behind what you do and who you are. It's scary.
I'm an optimist. I think this too shall pass. I think when I live in my own little bubble, as we all do. I work in a training department now. I'll go back out on the trucks again at some point before the end of my career, I'm certain. Probably got another 25 years left. But at the minute, I get to meet some wonderful people coming into the services, mate. We are still recruiting some incredible people, and they excite me. Yeah. They excite me for the future. They excite me for the culture that I feel we have now. I don't see what's been said, or I hear and read what's been said, but I've not seen that with my eyes. I've not seen that over the last 10, 12 years. And I'm very optimistic about the future. But I want to create a place that they want to stay. Do you know what I mean? I don't want them to come in, joining a service during a time of industrial action and uncertainty probably won't give them the best first impression that I would hope they would have. So as romantic as it might seem, sometimes I try and be a bit overwhelmingly optimistic and try and protect them from that a little bit, because it can be rough, if you're standing in the wind of all of this anger and frustration, especially if you're just joining the job now. And there's colossal amounts of recruitment going on.
And I think being part of that in recent years, bringing in new people and interviewing them and just seeing the talent that's there, and the love
they excite
that
me.
People still have. Yeah. I hope that this broad tarnishing brush that seems to be occurring just now is short-lived, and all of the issues that are rightly being called out are dealt with, and things change and go where they need to go as quickly as possible, because it does damage the majority that are not those people that should be painted with that that tarnished brush. It's it's an incredible job full of incredible people, but it has some arseholes. And every apple, every barrel has a rotten apple. It's inevitable that there'll be one or two, but we just need to, that we quickly need to find them and oust them.
I think most of them have been.
Yeah.
When I read all these reports, the historical reports from a few years ago, and I think the analogy of skeletons out of the closet, I think these are things that died a few years ago, and someone's just saying something in that fucking closet stinks, and now you're bringing it out, and it's been unfortunately revealed to the world.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that it wasn't dealt with appropriately at the time in most cases. There'll be some which obviously perhaps weren't.
Yeah.
But no, I think overwhelmingly we're in a really good place with that culture.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad. And it's people like us and people that listen to the podcast that are engaged and are those people that are proud of what they do.
Yeah.
And will go on to influence and create like-minded individuals as well, just with their passion and their love.
You shall find, mate. People, if you're looking for bad stuff, you'll find lots of bad stuff. If you're looking for the stuff that's really great, the other side of that is when I hear people that are coming for retirement and they're like, I could go this year, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
That's the thing, mate. You fucking
Yeah.
splash around and moan about how cold the water is and how crap the swimming pool is. And when someone says it's time to get out now, you go, no, 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 I want to stay. Do you know what I mean? People fucking love it, mate. And they're like, oh, do you reckon I could get a job in the training department? Or do you reckon I could come back as
Yeah.
like a job share?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's a fucking great job.
It is. It is.
People love it.
Yeah.
You know, they really do love it. You're spending every day with your mates, the guys and girls. You know, you're eating great food together. You're doing a great job. You're doing every day's a red letter day. You know, you're fucking abseiling from a building or visiting a cool place you'd never get to go usually. It's full of wonderful experiences, man. I love it. Hey folks, just wanted to jump in with a quick piece around firefighter health and well-being. Whether you are trying to join the fire service and pass them tricky fitness tests, if you are currently serving, or if you are coming up to that next chapter of your life, retiring from the emergency services, we get so many different questions around it. So in partnership with Fitness for the Frontline, we have come up with a series of guidance and programs specifically designed to reflect the physical elements of the role of a firefighter. So whether it's carrying an LPP across an overgrown field, lifting a ladder above your head under running it, or wrestling with cutting gear for 30 plus minutes at some kind of complicated RTC, our bodies are required to lift, push, and carry objects in very specific circumstances. That is effectively what Fitness on the Frontline focuses on, as well as the longer term aspects of overall health and wellness for our firefighters. Now, we are definitely not about to be smashing out world records or getting that beach body ready in 6 weeks rubbish. The systems and programs that we put in place are adjusted for people's current fitness levels, and they're not a prescriptive way or a one-size-fits-all BS. It is very likely for myself personally that I'm still going to be a firefighter when I'm 60 plus, so longevity in the role is really important to me, and I know it is for so many people out there. It all starts with no obligation, 7 days worth of the programming, absolutely free. So whether you're joining, serving, or looking at the next chapter in your life, Fitness for the Frontline is designed by firefighters for firefighters. Now back to the show.
And you know what? On top of all that, with what's happened with the industrial dispute and people coming together, in solidarity and unity and standing up for themselves, it has brought. And I feel it from my service. It has brought everyone closer together, stronger. There's greater bonds. There's greater respect. And when you think that you couldn't be closer, and then you go through a ballot, you're preparing for strike, and you suddenly feel like, fuck it, I didn't think you could get closer to these people, but it is, and many things have come out, and especially when you're then threatened with minimum service levels. You feel even more aggrieved and more together, and it's.
I think this might end up, when we connect the dots looking backwards, this might actually be the best way to have gone about it, because they say that every generation needs a good war, don't they? Which is horrible to say, but it, like you say, it calcifies the community. It brings everybody together. And this, if we can get right up to that point, get a wonderful, not a wonderful, if we get a fair negotiation, a fair agreement, having not to have taken strike action. It's a little bit like everyone's gotten ready for war, as horrible as it sounds, pulled ourselves together, had that camaraderie, become one again, and then not had to go to war. We've not had to throw stones at each other, damage personal relationships, and all of that. And I'm optimistic that if we get, whether people approve this one and when we go ahead with the agreement that's currently in place, or we go for something slightly different. But if we can avoid industrial action,
for sure,
I would love it, because it's never a good thing.
No, it's not. I think just on this episode, I'd like to acknowledge that camaraderie and togetherness and family by just acknowledging the death of Barry Martin in Edinburgh. And
you went up to the funeral, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
You're such a good egg you are, because it's a long way for you to go.
It was a long way. It was a poignant 48 hours. It was there was to see so many people from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service come out for one of their own was one thing, but to see the amount of people that travelled from all around the country to pay their respect was another. And
well, I've got to acknowledge that we have got a global audience. So for people that are unfamiliar, Barry Martin, 38-year-old firefighter, sadly passed on Friday, the 27th of January, following a serious injury he sustained at a large-scale fire at the what was the building? Jenner's building in Edinburgh. Father of two, beloved husband, and incredible loss to the UK Fire and Rescue Service and the firefighting family worldwide as well.
Yeah, it was, and that was felt on the day. It was
beautiful turntable ladder they had out there.
Oh, everything about it was so significant. It was so respectful. The people of Edinburgh were the streets were lined with firefighters for the cortege, but the beyond the people behind them in lines and lines were the people of Edinburgh who'd come out to pay their respects as well. And it isn't until you're part of something, quite, I've got a shaky voice now. It isn't until you're part of something really significant like that, yeah.
Overwhelmingly tragic.
Yeah, it is. And I think for his family, for his wife and his kids and his family and his friends and his colleagues, it was the most incredible service and goodbye, which they all hold in their hearts forevermore. You know, that moment of respect for the ultimate sacrifice. But just to be there and to know, you know, when all the firefighters from Scotland were passing and they saw your, you know, your service badge, and they were like, oh, where have you come from? You know, and they discover where you've come from, and they go, wow, thank you so much. It really is appreciated. And you then send a message that we are that we're one family. And you know that whenever just by making yourself available and presenting yourself to pay your respects, that should it ever happen anywhere else, God forbid, that will be reciprocated.
Yeah.
You know, and those people,
and that's just built on hope and faith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no agreement. There's not party contract.
No.
It is purely built on culture. If we didn't have the strength in culture and community that we did, you wouldn't see that attribute.
No, not at all. And you know, it was just an amazing thing to be a part of. I was fucking frozen for about 4 hours. I was in my number ones.
Scotland's ever warm.
I was in my number ones, and I had firefighters in front of me in their fire gear, going, "I'm cold, I'm cold." I'm like, "You got no fucking idea. I'm fucking frozen." But I didn't care. You know, it was just so special to be a part of, and I'm glad I went. I'm glad I paid my respects, and I'm glad that I represented my service. Yeah, and it was amazing. And just on a point of minimum service levels, I forget her name. It's a Labour Lord. She this week stood up in opposition of these minimum service levels and made a point that Barry Martin lost his life at maximum service level.
Yeah.
She made the point that, you know, you cannot, what are you doing? You can't, you know, minimum service levels. Many brigades struggle to reach what would be considered as a minimum service level with availability for one reason and another. But Barry Martin died as a result of his injuries whilst operating in at maximum service level. And it's just a reflection of the seriousness of the job we do.
Yeah.
You know, we don't lose firefighters. The UK Fire and Rescue Service doesn't lose firefighters every year.
No, one of the lowest death rates globally.
And that is a blessing, and that's testament to procedure, training, whatever. But now and again, through no fault of people, just a tragic.
You can get everything right and still lose.
A tragic alignment of planets. You know, just the right place, wrong time, whatever you want to call it. Things tragically happen as they did in Scotland, and it's so sad. It's so sad. But for the government to continue to treat us with contempt and disregard in the shadow of our losses.
That's currently out for consultation now, by the looks of it. So that closes on the 3rd of May. So it's a consultation on implementing minimal service levels for fire and rescue services during periods of strike action. But it's such a dangerous line to tread with that, because then people start considering a minimum to be the required standard. Therefore, why would we go over and above it? So I appreciate it's part of almost a governmental risk assessment on the public's behalf. But it can have unintended consequences, hopefully unintended consequences, but hopefully won't be required as well.
No. And I you know, I hope I hope and I keep my fingers crossed that it's kicked out. But if it comes in, it's a dangerous place to be. And for me, it's like you will operate at a minimum service level. I think that's dangerous in itself.
Yeah.
You will have one fire engine available
Covering
for that entire area,
your entire region, and you have
think,
4 available over your fire and rescue services or over your brigade.
And we've got to manage our health and safety being put at that detriment. It would be defensive firefighting operations. Yeah,
anyway,
it's a grim place to be, but it's I hope I hope there's a resolution. Whether it, like I say, whether the uplift in pay is accepted or rejected is to be discovered. But whatever the outcome is, I hope everyone stays safe.
Right, my man. We'll close it there. But thank you so much for your time this morning. I always love catching up with you. I do need to get up to see you at some point and have a proper catch up.
You're welcome to come up to have dinner with us on a night shift. I've introduced you to my watch. It's a big watch now. There's 13 of us on the watch.
That's good.
It's a great station to be at, I must admit. It's just been a blast from day one.
Good.
The banter's healthy. Everything we do is just brilliant, and it's really cool. It's really cool.
Beautiful. Right, my friend. Some love to the family.
I'm going back down the gym.
Yeah, let's go for it. See you, mate.
See you later. Bye.
Firefighters podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.